Yesterday, June 1st, 2025, police in Boulder, Colorado were flooded with 911 calls with people reporting an attack near the courthouse on 13th and Pearl Street and indicating that there was a man in the area with a weapon that had been setting people on fire. Of course, video and photo immediately hit social media, and smoke was seen coming from the area with victims laying on the ground as chaos had erupted just moments before.
We're fucking gone!
Stay.
By 1:30 p.m., police confirmed that they were responding to the incident and they urged the public to avoid the area. And then soon after that, the suspect was identified as 45-year-old Mohammed Sabry Soliman. And the details of the terror that he had just unleashed on an innocent group of people, including women, children, and elderly, started to come to light. And as the story has taken shape, I think a darker truth has been exposed. That radicalism by pro-terror groups in the US has gone unchecked for far too long, and the consistent downplaying of this type of activity by those who seem to foster it in the first place, though they deny that they have anything to do with it, is making it worse. On the bright side, I guess, it has also clarified that maybe the right and the left can agree on one position, that speech can be violence and that you can incite harm against innocent people with the words that you use. So we are going to go over the details of what we know so far and how the media has chosen to cover this situation. And you can decide for yourself if they are maybe a little bit complicit or if they're completely oblivious to the concept that they might be paving the way for extremists to do, extremist things. But before we get too much further, my name is Outspoken Samantha, and I appreciate you being here. Please hit the thumbs up button on this video and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you so much for doing both of those things. So as I said, there was a crazy man who unleashed a horrific attack against a group of people in downtown Boulder, Colorado yesterday. Now, as reports came out about what happened, we learned the identity of this person, what he said before he launched Molotov cocktails into this group, and how the specific religious identity and activism of this group seemed to make him feel justified in what he was doing. So we have found out that the suspect, Mohammed Sabry Soliman, is an Egyptian national who is in the US illegally, and he used a flamethrower and Molotov cocktails to set pro-Israel demonstrators on fire.
Our colleague Bill Malusian doing some great work that he is an Egyptian national who is in the U.S. illegally because of a visa overstay who came during the Biden administration.
Yeah, and, so obviously one of the talking points is going to be the fact that he would not have been here and should not have been here if we were actually enforcing our immigration laws. I think for the purposes of the investigation now and the prosecution and what charges are brought, et cetera, what they're going to be particularly interested in is any of the contacts that he had back home. He's here now. It's about 3 years. So any conversations he had back then may or may not be pertinent. But was he reaching back home? Was he in contact with bad elements overseas? These are the things that those U.S. attorneys that spoke at the press conference and the DA, they're going to be looking at very hard so they can figure which way to go with this investigation. The fact that we have the stuff going on these campuses and that the administrations, whether it's Columbia or Harvard or any of them, seem to just shrug. These are the things I think as a society, more importantly, we have to be looking at.
The group of people that he targeted were participants of the Run for Their Lives event, which is a weekly peaceful protest for the Israeli hostages being held in Gaza. And after the attack, he stayed in the area to yell things like "Free Palestine" just before he was handcuffed and taken away by police.
We can't do nothing about that. We can't do nothing.
We can!
Not here.
You have to answer this!
Not here, bro.
You're not!
I'm taking video right now.
Answer
He was wearing an orange suit with like something on his back.
Spraying alcohol.
Spraying alcohol, but what he did was he made it look like he was here.
He's drinking Molotov cocktails.
And for us!
In that clip, you can also hear him yelling the question, "How many babies have you killed?" which is going to become relevant in a minute. But witnesses, of course, were interviewed about what they saw unfold.
A woman who was on the ground bleeding out. Oh my gosh, sorry. And then there were two other women whose calves were burned from the fire. And so I just ran over to stay with them and make sure that they didn't like lose too much blood from their legs.
And there was a woman that was burning on the ground. And then we noticed two other people that had also been affected by the burns on their legs. And this man was shirtless and was yelling with some kind of accent and was threatening to burn people.
It is unclear if everyone that was injured or killed in this attack was Jewish, but obviously the representation of this particular movement gave this man the idea that he was justified in what he was doing. And I also think it continues to clarify and leave no room for doubt that these chants and these ideas are not meant to be peaceful, as a common theme is that they are always followed by violence.
Someone, don't touch me! Don't touch me! I told you don't touch me! You move back! Come on, you move back!
Don't fucking push me! Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out!
And then, of course, we saw the recent murders of two Jewish diplomats in Washington, D.C., Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram. And you'll never believe what the murder suspect had to say when he was arrested for this.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
So yeah, these liberation chants sure seem to leave a trail of chaos, violence, and death in their wake. But it's not just about the words that they're using, which, let's be real, are not calling for peaceful protests. The stuff that they're saying is clearly meant to stir people up. And in a lot of cases, it is pushing for violence, especially toward Jewish people and anybody who supports them. Yet, for some reason, they call us the schmazzies. What makes it worse is how the media chooses to portray these issues by doing things like this. It says a man reportedly set people on fire in Boulder, Colorado, leaving multiple individuals injured, the city's police chief said, as people gathered for a peaceful pro-Israeli demonstration. Now, the quotation marks around the word peaceful is meant to give the idea that while those in attendance might call it peaceful, it's up for interpretation. And if someone else doesn't feel that Jewish people marching for Israeli hostages is peaceful, then their interpretation that this is a violent movement is justification for an attack. So naturally, people who act like this already know it's going to get downplayed. They don't expect any real consequences, which just encourages them to keep doing it. But on the other hand, consequences don't really seem to deter it because they feel so strongly about this activism that they are willing to take the charges and the consequences if that's what it takes. That is how brainwashed these people are. And the media knows all of this. If Democrats have the superior level of intellectualism and education that they like to claim that they have and like to tell all of us that they have, then you cannot argue that the media and their activist leaders aren't aware that downplaying the results of this ideology that they push is going to encourage more violence and chaos, especially when violence and chaos has been the consistent result of pushing this stuff. Because if they say that they don't know that that's what they're doing, then they're not educated. They're stupid. But you can't have it both ways. Here are Jessica Dean and Andrew McCabe on CNN saying that they applaud the Boulder police being careful in labeling this as a terror attack, despite Kash Patel and Dan Bongino from the FBI immediately doing so.
Local authorities are saying one thing, and the FBI is saying something slightly different.
Yeah, that's never a great start. I think that the press conference that we saw, one thing was abundantly clear, is the local authorities, and I'm not sure we got the name of that person who was speaking. He seems to be a chief or somebody in charge there.
Same, yes.
Yeah, he is really very, very careful. And I think that's the right approach at this point.
It's interesting to see them get on their soapbox and lecture us about being careful with our words and anybody else being careful with their words. But the media is never careful with theirs. In the last couple of weeks, they have pushed a narrative that said 13,000 Palestinian babies will starve in 2 days. And it's a line that they repeated nonstop. The claim that 14,000 babies in Gaza were at risk of dying within the next 48 hours originated from a statement by UN humanitarian chief Tom Fletcher during a BBC Radio 4 interview on May 20th, 2025. This figure was widely reported, but later clarified as a misinterpretation of a UN-backed Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, or IPC report. The IPC report actually projected that 14,100 children between the ages of 6 months to 5 years could face severe acute malnutrition over the course of a year between April 2025 and March 2026, not that 14,000 babies would die in the next 2 days, which seems like a severe discrepancy. The UN and media outlets like BBC later corrected the timeline, acknowledging the error, but obviously the damage had already been done, and these are the things that have consequences. Ultimately, as we are seeing, these ideas have consequences, these words have consequences, this ideology has consequences, and we have seen how this ideology by the far left in America and across the world, as we've recently talked about what's been going on in South Africa, this stuff is meant to dehumanize people and cause violence. The people that push these ideas can deny it all they want and say that they don't mean for bad things to happen, but the outcomes and the actions of the people that adhere to it speak for themselves. I'm not calling for censorship. I am pro First Amendment at all times. However, what we have to acknowledge, Candace Owens, is that these ideas have no place in our education system, on college campuses, or in America in general. We have to deport illegal immigrants and have everybody go through the proper vetting process, and we have to eradicate these dangerous worldviews from our belief system as a country, and we have to acknowledge that America needs a defined culture and a defined foundation of standards that we all agree to uphold, and that we have to operate on a universal understanding of right and wrong and good versus evil, because the left is picking and choosing who gets to live and who gets to die, and it has nothing to do with your rights as a human being or that you have any rights because you're a human being. They don't believe that. Your right to life depends on your religious identity or your racial identity or your gender identity or your level of victimhood, and that belief system is incompatible with a moral and stable society. Anyway, I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments below. Please, again, be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to my channel, share this video with anybody that you think might find it interesting so you can help me to grow this channel. Other than that, keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.